Hi everyone, thank you so much for being here. Before we begin, please take a second to follow my alternative media channels. They're linked in the video description below. You're also welcome to show your support. You can do so through Patreon, Locals, and Substack. It is very much appreciated, and it is what makes this content possible on a daily basis. In several of my recent videos, I discussed the bipartisan obsession, and I will call this obsession because that's what it is, obsession with tariffs. They, of course, do this. They support these measures because somehow they think that that's what you want and it sounds great, assuming that nobody truly understands how an increase in tariffs would hurt an average US consumer. Both parties, the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, support an increase in protectionism, primarily on goods produced in China, but also in other countries, for example, on steel that is produced in Iran and Belarus, among other things. The current administration has just rolled out a range of new tariffs, up to 100% on Chinese EVs. We've got new tariffs that range from 25% to 50% on semiconductors, on batteries, battery components and parts, as well as on critical minerals. We have new tariffs on solar cells and other products that cannot be produced in the United States at the same price point for a variety of reasons. For one, our labor costs would drive up the price through the roof. In the case with Kamala Harris, these policies will continue, of course, because she effectively supported them these past 4 years. But if Donald Trump is elected, he will impose more tariffs as well. He has promised a 60% tariff on goods from China and a tariff of up to 20% on everything else the United States imports. To punish the machinery manufacturer John Deere for its plans to move some production to Mexico, Trump vowed to tax anything Deere tries to export back into the United States at 200%, and he also threatened to hit Mexican-made goods with 100% tariffs. So the idea here is to impose tariffs on anything that moves, so it seems. This is a truly bipartisan policy, and it is a uniparty after all, so we shouldn't be too surprised. I've long argued that an increase in tariffs would cause prices to go up for the US population. We don't have the infrastructure or the resources to produce the same goods at the same price point. So imposing tariffs or supporting any other protectionist measures is a way to impose more harm on our domestic economy, on our domestic consumers. But it is that idea of exceptionalism that drives this rhetoric and these policies, unfortunately. The International Monetary Fund, the IMF, finally published its own take on how more tariffs would do more harm than good. The IMF says greater protectionism would drag down world economy. So not just the US economy, but it will have a negative impact by fragmenting global markets, by disrupting the flow of goods and services, and ultimately it would slow economic activity, it would slow growth. What happens when economic activity slows? Well, unemployment goes up, production falls, consumer demand takes a hit, among many other things. In its latest economic outlook, the IMF expects the world economy to expand 3.2% through the end of 2024 and in 2025. The IMF cautioned that if higher tariffs hit a sizable portion of world trade by mid-2025, it would wipe 0.8% from the economic output next year and 1.3% the following year in 2026. Due to the fact that economies in the EU and the US are not exactly expanding, they're declining, Tariffs could really be that final nail that becomes a massive, truly massive disruption. For example, the IMF once again downgraded Eurozone forecast for next year while improving slightly its expectations of the US growth. I have yet to read more on this as to what caused that upgrade, but as you can see here, India and China are forecasted to lead economic growth for the foreseeable future in the world. Here's the head of the International Monetary Fund, Kristalina Georgieva. She says, we projected global growth at 3.2% for 2024 and for 2025. Medium-term prospects remain weak, she says. While disinflation brings hope for a smooth landing, but hope and smooth landing go very well together in one sentence, I would say, risks on the horizon abound. The risks she's referring to are, of course, geopolitical threats, escalations, fragmentation of markets, inflation, to name just a few. The top economist at the IMF commented, "It is a policy referring to protectionist measures, including tariffs, that is harming basically everyone," he says. It's harming the rest of the world. It is harming the United States. Yet, despite the fact that all economists appear to be on board with the fact that tariffs are not productive, they're actually extremely harmful, our political leadership is absolutely obsessed with protectionism. From a political perspective, from a political standpoint, we've seen the reaction of the global majority or the global South to economic sanctions. They are actively looking for alternative forms of settlement, and the BRICS Plus is actively developing a financial settlement platform that would allow them to transact in local currencies and to boost trade ties. So they wouldn't be exactly dependent on their Western partners in the long term. The IMF modeled a scenario in which the United States, Eurozone, and China imposed 10% tariffs on imports. China, of course, can mirror these moves too if it wants to. And so if that were to happen, the IMF concluded that a quarter of all trade around the world would be affected negatively. The IMF stated that the risks to growth would be, quote, compounded by further retaliation because their model actually assumes that it would stop only after one round of tariffs. In my opinion, the global South, the global majority, has not really assumed that offensive posture in this regard. And so the emerging markets simply want to conduct trade, they want to develop trade ties and attract investments to build up their infrastructure and to expand. So it is highly, highly unlikely that they would mirror these actions of the West by imposing tariffs or by limiting their own opportunities based on purely political alignments. But, there's always a chance that there may be a response or two. Thank you for watching. I hope this quick video was interesting and informative. Remember to show your support, like, subscribe, and share. For additional content, make sure that you check out my alternative social media channels. As always, you will find them linked in the description below. I certainly hope to see you there as well. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye for now.